This is an interview on the 15th of May 2011 with Jack Alexander McLeod, V305014, VX149521, Private, 39th Battalion, A Company, 8th Platoon. Well, Jack, my first question is, how did you join the Army?
I was underage at the time, and I decided I'd like to get into the Army. So I put my age up and got called up.
How old were you?
I was 17. I got called up and was sent to Mount Martha with the 5th Scottish Regiment, with the 5th Battalion. And from there, there was 4 of us in the tent, and they called for volunteers for the 39th Battalion. We volunteered to go to the 39th, and we moved almost straight away up to Mount Martha, to Darley, where the 39th Battalion was. And what do I do from there?
How did your father feel about you joining up?
Well, my dad had been in the First World War. He had been served in France and on the Western Front and been through all that. And on Christmas Day, 1941, my father and mother and my sister came up to virtually say goodbye to us, because we knew that we were moving out. And we had lunch together in the gardens at Bacchus Marsh. And my dad, that particular day, said to me, he says, "Listen, Jack," he said, "you know, you don't have to go away, you don't have to do this." And he said, "You're underage, and I could pull you out of the Army today." And he said, "What about it?" And I said, "Oh no, I'm happy, I'll stay where I am." I said, "I want to go away with the boys." And he said, "Well, I'm only asking you once." He said, "Don't ask me again. If you say no this time," he said, "you're in for keeps." And that's all that worked out. Until I got caught in an air raid in Moresby, the first raid in Port Moresby, and the first thing I thought of, gee, where's me dad? we soldiered on. Yeah.
And what was it like there at Darley?
Darley was quite good, yeah. It was nice at Darley, enjoyed it. It was, it was good. Had good company. I had one trip to the rifle range up there. That was about our full extent of our training, I think. But no, Darley was quite good, and it was.
Do you remember your mates then? Who came across with you?
Well, there was Keith Worrell, Dougie Morrison, and Bill Young and myself. Keith and Keithy Worrell and Billy Young, they'd been schoolmates. They lived 2 doors from each one another over in Clifton Hill, and they'd done everything together, played football together, and Bill was a champion footballer. Actually, had he not gone away with the Army, he would have been a champion with Collingwood. Billy played with the thirds in those days, they were doing that, and he won the medal for the best and fairest in the competition. So yeah, he was a mad magpie, Bill, and he finished up my best friend, and everywhere we went, we sort of been together. We even decided we got bitten by the same mosquito, because whenever I got malaria, I'd say, "Well, where's Bill? Which hospital is he in?" And sure enough, he'd be in the hospital somewhere.
Do you remember your train trip up to Sydney?
Yes, I remember getting on the train at Darley in the morning, and it was quite a long trip up to Sydney. It was quite enjoyable. We were quite excited about it in those days.
And where did you know where you were going? And
yes, we knew we were going to Port Moresby. I think in the first instance, when we first volunteered, you see, the Japs weren't even in the war, and as far as I can recall, we were to be a garrison battalion. That was, I think, the 49th Battalion was up there then, and we were going up as a garrison battalion. But then things changed because the Japs came into the war on the 7th of December. So it was a different outlook in those days. The Japs didn't expect them to move down so quick, that's all. Yeah.
And just tell us a little bit about what you remember on your voyage on the Aquitania.
Wow, I remember I remember being a very large ship, and it was a beautiful old liner, and I was lucky enough to share the cabin with a couple of sergeants. I don't know how that ever came about. All the other boys were downstairs, and so I had a wonderful trip. We were a very safe trip because I think we were escorted by the best escort that had ever left Australia. We had like the HMAS Perth and Canberra and goodness knows what. It was no worries there. We were safe as houses. How the Aquitania come to go there, I don't know, because there was about 5,000, I believe, on the ship, because it's the 53rd Battalion. They joined us in Sydney, and yeah, it was quite a venture for us. I remember when we got into the harbour at Port Moresby, all the young boys came out in their lacquer toys and that to greet us, and we started throwing coins over the side, and they were diving and collecting all the coins and that, you know. They'd sing out, throw two bob, throw two bob. It was no good throwing sixpences or threepences. They wanted the 2 bob. And one of the boys wrapped the penny up in the silver paper and threw it over. And I won't tell you what the boys called him.
And I believe you were just about the last off the Aquitania. How did you manage that?
Well, I don't really know. I never ever worked that one out. But I finished up helping the boys. We had to load all their kit bags and that into a truck, and I had the job of doing that, or one of them. All the rest of the boys had to march out to the 7 Mile aerodrome. They had to march the 7 miles out. So when they were halfway out there, I go past them the back of the truck and give them a wave. So I think they finished that throwing stones at me.
Moving on there, what happened to you once you were stationed at the 7 Mile?
Well, we weren't there very long, but before we all got sick. We got dysentery, and there was 5 out of our tent that I can recall all went to hospital, or up to Lightning Ridge as it was known, and yeah, we were in there for, I don't know, a week, 10 days. Was pretty trying sort of a disease, that one. Yeah. From there we got sent to Murray Barracks. It became the staging camp, I guess. And it was there that they called for volunteers for the signals they were setting up. There was no radar around Moresby, and they decided to set up these signal stations around Moresby. And we became the spotters. And Bill said to me, "Righto, Jack, give me a dig in the ribs." Says, we'll be in this. He said he was always interested in being the signaller. So, of course, being me mate, I went with him. And we got sent from there up to Rona Falls, where they started the new signal service up there with Major Small and Captain McConaughey. They'd got out of Rabaul, and I believe there that they'd been called the Fortress 6. We became known then as the Fortress 6. Later on they called us the PAU, which was the Papuan Administration Unit. Then we became the spotters, and in the finish, I don't know what we were, but anyhow, we did a small course there and got sent out into the bush.
So your first
Our first trip from Murray Barracks we got sent into the wireless station in at Port Moresby on Earle Beach, and that night we were woken at about 3 o'clock in the morning from memory, and there was supposed to be Japs overhead. Well, we hadn't heard anything, but hadn't heard anything about Japs in those days. It was about the 3rd of February, I think, from memory. Anyhow, one of the fellas had come out of Rabaul and he said, "You better get out, fellas, there are Japs over there." He said, "How do you know that?" And he said, "I can tell by the revs in the motor." So we walked across they'd been building weapon pits along the beach. There was 3 or 4 weapon pits there, and there was one just opposite the place where we were in. And Bill and I and the other fellow was with us was Mick Youngman, and we were standing beside this weapon pit. It's just a hole in the ground sort of thing with sandbags around the top. And all of a sudden, boom, down they come. So they dropped a stick right along the beach, and the last one landed pretty close to us, you know. That's when I was thinking about my dad then.
He was right.
Yeah, he was right. Yeah. But luckily we went back next morning and we found a big piece of shrapnel stuck into the sandbags that right onto it. Well, you know, we'd got sort of half buried in sand and that up to our knees. And that's what it was. So, but anyhow, that was our first taste of the real thing. Yeah.
What did you remember about Port Moresby, the town itself?
Well, I remember Hanabata. I remember going around Hanabata and seeing all the villages built over the water, they're all in the sea, and all the Lakatoys and things like that. Moresby itself, there wasn't a great deal there. Burns Phillip, of course, had the big store there. I think the night of the raid, the first day, they blew the back out of Burns Phillip's store, and I think some of the boys got in there and knocked a bit of grog off and trampled over the wristlet watches to get to the beer. Yeah.
So how long were you at Port Moresby before you were shifted out on your first?
We went up to Rana Falls and did a crash course up there, and it was on the 3rd of February. There was a group of us. There was 7 of us. We got shifted out onto the. We went out on an old Ford Junkers aeroplane, old three-engine triplane, and we left early in the morning. I remember that. We flew up over Kokoda, did the trip over Kokoda, so I think we're probably the first ones to see Kokoda. And we landed out at, we thought we were going to, well, we weren't sure where we were going, but I thought we were going to WOW. We had given sealed orders not to be open until we got out of the plane. And anyhow, we finished up landing at a place called Gona, which was in the Warrior Valley. It was towards WOW, but I believe WOW was getting blown to pieces at the time, so they must have decided to set us down there. And when we got out of the plane, of course, we had our sealed orders and didn't know where we were. We'd had breakfast and had a meal for tea. The plane was supposed to come back that afternoon, and it never come back for 5 days. When it did, it brought the other 2 boys with us, which made up the 9 of us, and we had 3 transmitters and receivers, 3 sets. We had a little Briggs and Stratton battery charger with what we used to charge our batteries, but we didn't know where we were and didn't know what we were supposed to do. Now, luckily, the patrol officer from WOW, Major Costello, he came down to see what was going on. I think he'd heard there were some soldiers there, didn't know whether they were Japs or Australians, who they were. So he set us up pretty good, and he worked out a scheme where we'd set up 3 stations. We had 3 stations along the Warrior Valley about 3 days apart, and that's what we did.
About 3 or 4 men in each at
about
each
3
station?
men on each station, yeah. I stayed up in the hills with Bill Young and Alec Meares, and Alec was the one. He was a civilian in Port Moresby. Alec was about 26, and he'd been the secretary to chief medical officer in Port Moresby. After the first raid, there was not a lot of civvies left, but the ones that were eligible to join the army were given the opportunity of either enlisting at Murray Barracks, or coming back to Australia. I think Alec had actually enlisted at Murray Barracks. So he was a great help to us in a way, because he was a New Guinea man, but he could speak Moto, which is the native language, or native, well, pidgin English, only it's in native tongue. But of course we finished up in the territory, New Guinea, where they only speak pidgin English, so all his good knowledge went to waste, although he was a help. So he knew a little bit more about them, handling the natives, than what we did. Anyhow, we finished up. The boys, we set up our first station out there. We were all together at Gona, and we got up in the morning, and there was 3 Jap planes came over, 3 bombers. They're up pretty high, just for little silver specks they were. So that we decided Albie O'Mara, who was ex-39th Battalion too, decided he'd send the first message. So he sent a message through to VIG Moresby to tell them there were 3 bombers coming over their way, pull their heads in or something like that. And as soon as he switched the high tension on, they done a U-turn, come back in the valley and come back down, and they dropped 16 bombs on us. So we thought, this is going to be good. It happens every time we send a message. But luckily that didn't happen. Although they used to occasionally, we got an odd, might be 23 or 21, there was an odd one going over. They'd always be the last one, used to peel off and have a bit of a look around. They dropped an odd bomb or 2 around, particularly if there was some of the villages that had a little bit of might be a bit of corrugated iron or something that come over from maybe from Mission or something like that, and they were a bit inclined to get an odd one every now and then too. It was a bit of a disaster really, because we'd get the blame for that, you see, and they'd go a bit quiet on us.
Just tell us about the natives there and what they did for you.
Well, the natives were wonderful to us. They supplied us, while we were up in the hills, they supplied us with food in the way of sweet potatoes mainly was the main. Well, they built us a hut, you know, we had our own hut. They were very good to us really.
And they did your meals?
And they were well, they were almost up in the Kokoda country up there. They all had, you know, their waxed hair, and I don't know how they got around, because they didn't have any clothes on. It was pretty cold. It was always cold at night, and every night it rained. Those natives, they all carried big bows and arrows and spears. That everyone was always armed, and they didn't speak pidgin even. The local Lulu or Tultul, who was the government interpreter in most villages, could speak pidgin English, and the old Tultul up there, or Lulu, whichever way it went, he couldn't even speak English. But Bill at one stage we could get the earphones on him, and they were playing In the Mood. So the old Lulu was up there doing his little dance and technique. So he became a great friend of ours, although he couldn't speak to us. Yeah, it was good.
What was the country like where you were?
Oh, it was heavy forest. There was real forest up in there, yeah.
Was it near the beach, or were you up in the
No, we were up in the hills there. But after about 3 months, we decided we'd have a change around. We'd move up. So I'd had my 18th birthday up there with Bill and Alec, which wasn't a very good party, but anyhow.
So there were 3 of you
Yeah, only 3 of
in
us.
a hut?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I finished up. I walked down to the coast where the third station was. Took about 6 days to walk down there, and I've been pretty fit up in the hills because there was no mozzies up there, and yeah, we were living pretty good. But when I got down there, I was sick. Got real bad, and all the boys were sick there. A lot of swamps and everything about the back. It was a terrible, unhealthy sort of a place. Although we weren't right out the front because we had a beach out the front there. That was all right. Yeah, that wasn't too good. That's where I lost my boots. One time I got down there, my boots had fallen to pieces, so I had no boots there for about 3 months.
And I believe you didn't have any medical supplies at all.
Had no medical supplies whatsoever. I finished up. I got real sick there. At one stage, I was vomiting blood. I was virtually unconscious for about 3 or 4 days, and my mate Bill Young, he'd gone down to Ioma, which was up back over the border, back into Papua, and he was there with the what was his name, Mr. I think he became a captain, McKenna. Captain McKenna. He was the resident magistrate at Ioma, and the boys had radioed through to Moresby to tell them that I was pretty sick. Moresby sent back a message to say they thought it might have been, cerebral malaria or some sort of thing like that, and to take sulfalinamide tablets, plenty of soft drinks and whatever. So we had nothing. Well, Bill, that was all done in code. We had what they called a play-fair code, which we'd learned to. And whilst at Ioma, Bill was listening in, we had a session every day where we listened in to see if there's any messages. Bill heard the message from VIG and he decoded it. And McKenna they had, I think it was 26 sulfalinamide tablets, and he sent them through by carrier with the boys. Bill said, I'll take them. He was a couple of days away, you see. And they said, no, he said, be too late. He said, you better send them by the bus. So the boys came through, and I think that might have saved my life. That was the only medicine I ever had. We were very fortunate. While we were there was 3 of us there. I could hardly ever remember when there was the 3 of us on deck together. There was always one of us down sick. It was pretty bad. But apart from that, the living there was all right because we could go out and have a swim, and it was not too bad. I even got an odd fish occasionally. Yeah.
You wouldn't have had any letters from home?
Got a couple through. There was, they sent a cipher clerk once. A cipher clerk came through. I don't know where he finished up, but they brought a bit of mail. There was a couple of. We did get a little bit occasionally, but not too much. My mum and dad, they hardly ever heard, so they didn't know where they were. We even tried to send. We decided we'd send some telegrams home, so we could radio through to Moresby and ask them. They wouldn't do it. No. So my parents didn't know where I was or what was going on. They were pretty bad for them. Although my mum was a bit psychic. She always knew when I was well and when I was sick. The night I was telling you about when we first got bombed at Port Moresby in the first air raid, my mother woke up about 3 o'clock in the morning, said to me, Dad, quick, there's a terrible explosion out in the streets. She said, you better get up. And then she said, oh, something's happened to young Jack. And that we worked it out. It was the exact time and everything. But she was a wonderful old lady. She did. She knew when I was in trouble and when I wasn't. But that's mothers for you, see. Yeah, that was rather amazing. Yeah.
So how long were you up on the coast there before you got moved?
Well, when after the Japs had landed Buna, of course, we were between Buna and Salamo. We were asked to move up to Morribee Harbour. They were expecting the Japs to land there. It was quite a big harbour up there. So it was Albie and bloke named Frank Franks and myself. We moved off up to Morribee, which was about a day's walk, which I did in my bare feet. And when we got up there, we found it was the Lutheran mission was there, and there's a nice big weatherboard house up on top of the hill. So we thought, this is all right. We'll go and have a look. There's nothing there, no one there. So this will do us. So we moved into the house.
Did you have all your radio equipment with you?
Yeah. Well, the natives again would carry that for us. So they carried it. Well, the only thing I can ever remember that they did give us, we did have to trade with. We did have a little bit that was the emu twist, tobacco. They carry all day and give them a couple of sticks, I think. Well, up in the hills we had a little box of salt, and they'd carry all day for a spoonful of salt. You you put a spoonful of salt in it, and they just go like that. That was their day's pay. But they were wonderful people. The Warrior Valley boys were really, really fine people. Very well built, big, strong fellas, and a really lovely race of people. Yeah, we were very pleased with them.
So what happened when you set up in the house?
Well, I was just going to say, we finished up. There was two big copal trees out the front. We set up our aerial. We used to have a 66-foot aerial with a 66-foot lead in. We set the aerial up out there, and next morning the plane came over and come round the harbour, and he was on his own, this fellow, but down very low. So anyhow, he did a turn, sort of headed towards the house, and when I looked up, I thought, I could see this big thing underneath, and I said, Jesus, it's an aerial torpedo. I thought we were going to get blown off. It turned out to be a naval reconnaissance seaplane, which I'd never ever seen. He came in, and he luckily came in on an angle because he came between the kapok trees with his machine gun going. They came around and gave us a couple of blasts, and then he went off down to Ambassi, where Father Gill was, and he machine gunned his place. And I believe the only thing he got down there was Father Gill's rooster. Yeah. So that was a bit of an experience. But from there, we finished up. The natives, Father Gill's boys, he came across an American airman that'd been a flying fortress shot down over Ambassi, and one of the boys, the five of them, I believe, this is what story that they told us. There was five of them parachuted out of the plane, and the Zeros come in and staffed them up and shot them up while they were in the parachute. And tell Leo got ashore. He'd swum with Bombardier for some hours and lost him in the current. Got ashore. When he woke up, he was exhausted. Of course, he woke up and he had the water up over his knees. He's just laying on the beach. And some of Father Gill's boys had found him, and because he couldn't keep them there, so he sent him back with their boys up to us, and we sent some boys out to see if there was any survivors, and they came back with a full crew out of a Marauder, so we finished up with 8 of them. There was 7 out of the Marauder and the one out of the Flying Fortress.
They would have been pretty happy to see you.
They were. They didn't know where they were. They took a bit of a risk. They were going the wrong way, I think, in the first place, and they were lucky they turned around and come back with the natives.
And did you send off a message then?
Yeah, we did. We were having a bit of trouble with our transmitters, and at the time they were getting a bit worn out, I think. We couldn't use Morse code because we hadn't been trained properly. But so we finished up. We had 2 wireless air gunners on board from the aeroplanes. They got through to Morsley using our sets, and in the finish they decided like, there was nowhere where they could land to pick them up, so they were going to walk out. So we had to walk back to Gona and over the mountains to Tarpweedy and back. That was the idea, and they finished up. They sent out a DC-3 with some supplies for the trip, and would ask for blankets and things because he got cold up in the hills. Anyhow, about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, this airplane, the DC-3, come down. They flew down the river because there'd been a strip of Donna, or Dona, D-O-N-A, I think it was, but that where the old missionaries had used it for little planes, and that's what they were aiming for, I think. Anyhow, the first 3 cases went straight into the river and said goodbye to them. But anyhow, we lost half of it, but finished up, got some blankets and some bit of tucker, and I've got a pair of Yankee boots, which were a size too big, but rubber soles, but they were better than nothing. And between, there was Jimmy Stewart, he was a lieutenant in the first PIB, the Battalion History Battalion. They'd come across the trail, from Moresby. They were doing a reconnaissance trip, and he'd called in. Matter of fact, we'd seen him twice while we were out there. Anyhow, they decided somebody better go with them. They couldn't speak English, they couldn't speak pidgin or anything. So I got the job, and I walked back to Gona with them. And we got picked up at Gona eventually by a Hudson airplane. And
were you sick at this time? Were you sick? Were you ill at that time?
Yeah, I was still sick. Yeah, we were always sick, It was almost a permanent thing,
So you got picked up with the Americans?
I got picked up with the Americans, yeah.
And tell us about that. You all squeezed in the plane?
Yeah, there was I think the Hudson had a crew of 5, and they decided they were going to take the sick ones first, which was Leo Ranta was the sales survivor out of the force. He got malaria, and myself had malaria. We were going to wait the next day, and anyhow, they decided anyway. The pilots got together and they said, "Oh, look," the Aussie pilots said, "Well, don't bugger, we'll take the lot." So they jettonised a whole heap of, the fuel. I thought I have to leave enough in there to get home. And anyhow, we all stacked into this little plane, and away we went, got back to Moresby. The Yanks offered me a trip back to Townsville with them. They were stationed in Townsville. What about come back to Townsville? We said, well, how can I go there? I've got no clothes. I've got no money. Well, you don't need any money. And I said, yeah, but I'd be out up for desertion. And said, they'd introduced me then to their colonel, who was at Moresby. And I said, how do I get home anyway? And this colonel, he said, man, when you want to come home, we will fly you home, he said. But I didn't go. I thought I'd be out up for desertion. So Colonel Small was the CO then. He came and picked me up, and I went back with him, and I blew me stack, of course, but I left out there, and I told him, I said, if you don't hurry up and get somebody out there to help these fellas, they'll all be dead. Anyhow, they did send me around to an intelligence department there, and the major there. They wanted to know, I knew where all of those, what they called bridge cunders, which was over the river, and I could fill them in a bit. They asked me, would I fly back with them and go up there? And Colonel Spall said, this boy's had enough, he's going to hospital. So he stacked me up and took me off to hospital. He came back the next day. He was a wonderful fellow. He came back next day and he said to me, listen, mate, he said, don't worry about your mates. He said, we're going in to get them. And they did. They went in and relieved them. And then the boys that took over from us, they did a terrific job too, because the Japs came right up through there after us. Yeah, they did a real good job too. So that's how we got out.
You would have been in hospital for a little while in Port Moresby.
I was in hospital in Port Moresby for a while. Yeah, I did a full malarial course and so on. I finished up, I don't know, I think I did everything. But anyhow, I finished up at the Kuataki in the convalescent depot up there. And because the Japs were just about out out of the opening, I think, on coming down the trail. So they came around and said, well, any of you boys that feel as though you'd like to go back to unit, you can go. Then I decided, well, I'm not going to be in bed here if it looked as though I thought they were going to break out, you know. Well, I'm not going to be caught in bed without a rifle or something. I said, I'll go back to my unit. So they sent me back to Hanabata, right down to the New Guinea Administration Unit. How I got there or why, I don't know. I think possibly just we'd been out in the bush, they thought, you know, I could speak pidgin and so on. But what they didn't realise, I couldn't speak Mado, see, so I was in the wrong department. If they were going to send me out anywhere, they should have sent me back into New Guinea. I finished up, I got sent up to Owen's Corner, and there we went out with a patrol, which was Captain McLeod, the 39th Battalion, was in charge of it. There'd been a group of boys left behind up at Nauru, out in a few mile out it was. They'd been wounded and left behind, and we got the job of going in. I went up with the natives. There was another fellow from the administration unit. I don't think I had a lot to do with it. And anyhow, we went in and went out through a place called Nigabai from Tai, which is out around the tracks. And we got up to Nauru up there. And the Japs were still there then. Anyhow, we finished up. We got, from memory, it was nine wounded people. We got out, and the two boys that had stayed behind with these people, that they also came out on the stretcher. We finished up with we had a doctor, of course, with us to treat them, and the boys carried these wounded people out. On the way back, we found another two that had been the boys that stopped for a toilet break, and I walked into the bush and come out with an extra two soldiers. They'd been wandering around for about 2 or 3 weeks or more, and they heard the natives. They didn't know where they were. They'd got lost. They heard the natives talking and thought they were Japs. They'd gone bush, and luckily the boys had gone for a toilet break, otherwise they would have still been there. So we brought them out too. So we were out for, I think, 13 days on that trip, which was pretty hectic. And from there, I'm back into hospital now, and long story short, but I got sent home. I got invalided out. It was around Christmas time, and I finished up at Charters Towers, in hospital at Charters Towers for Christmas.
And how old would have you been then?
I turned 18 then, yeah.
And your dad was right.
The dad was right, yeah. Yeah, Dad was right there. Yeah, Dad had a pretty rough time during the First World War.
So after Charters Towers, did you manage to get back home? Did you manage to get leave?
No, I didn't. I finished up. I did two hospital trips at Charters Towers, and they decided there they'd send me further south. So I went down to Warwick. I was at Warwick for I don't know, a couple of months or more. I did 3 hospital trips there. I go into hospital, finished my treatment, went to the con depot, back to hospital. It was just like that. Eventually finished up at Morgan Park, which was the transit depot there. And I applied for leave to come and see my mum and dad. I'd been away for whatever it was, 18 months or more. And no, you can't get any leave. Why not? Well, you're in your unit serving overseas. Well, while your unit's overseas, you can't get leave. And I finished up. I said, well, I'm in the New Guinea unit. How am I ever going to get home? Well, bad luck. On the train, I went on to back to Ceylon up at, and from there I was still reported sick, and then the doctor there tried to help me. He said to me, what's going to happen to you if you go back? And I said, I think I'll die. And he said, I think you will too, Jack. So he tried to get me leave and couldn't. There was I think there was a warrant officer there from Angau, and they tried to get me leave and couldn't get it. So anyhow, I decided I'd go up. I want to go and see my mummy. So I finished up. I was on guard this night in the compound where all the boys had been shooting through. So when my shift came along, I said, I asked them, well, where did you get picked up? Oh, I was so and so. They don't go near the station camps, slip out of that. So I said, all right. So when I finished, I packed up my gear, put it away, put my name on it, and put AWL on it, and said, hooray. So I jumped the rattler, and I took me a week to get back to Melbourne. I got back to Melbourne. I come around the loop around from Broadmeadows. When I got what happened when I got as far as Seymour. Well, it started really at Albury. I got as far as Albury. I got shunted off. I finished up. I went up into the railway yards, and the boys were putting the tarpaulins over these trucks, over the railway track. And I went down the street and had a few beers. And anyhow, they said, this train's going express to Melbourne. I saw a beauty. They said, can I get in there? Yes. They climbed up in the thing. They put the tarpaulin down, gave me the ropes on the inside so I could undo it to get out. And off we go. I finished up. I got as far as Seymour, and we got shunted off. I was there for an hour or two, and had a bit of a look out through the little thing. There's some provos out there on the station, a bit of creek court there, so it was in the middle of winter, and I found out I was on a heap of old, I think there were taps and pipes and things, and of they froze during the night, so it was pretty cold. And when eventually the train got hooked onto another engine, and I could hear the boys say, oh, this is going straight through now. So I did the loop around Broadmeadows down through Footscray. I thought, how am I going to get off the darn thing? So I finished up. I got out of the thing. I was riding on the bumpers on the track. And when I got to Footscray, I could see, I knew where the bus was from there, would have gone to Ascot, which had taken me home. The train's not slow, wouldn't stop, so all I had was a kit bag with me. So I threw the kit bag off, and it went whoosh like that, and I jumped. So I went over and I rolled downhill, picked my kit bag up. When I got on the bus, went and landed in Ascot. I was home. I was in a mess. I'd been in the train. I was dirty and unshaven, and I was walking down Union Road, and the local barber, there was a bloke named Joe Murray up there. He said to me, Jesus, where you been? He was out the front, and I said, you better come in. I come inside. He took me in, gave me a shower, a shave, done my hair, tied me up, and off I walked down home. Walked in, Jesus, Jack, what are you doing there? Well, my dad nearly had a fit.
Mum would have been happy.
Mum was happy, yeah. And anyhow, 2 days home, and I got an attack of malaria. So what do we do here? Oh, well, I'll have to go to the hospital. Ring up, got the ambulance out from Heidelberg, and off I went. So I was put under close arrest. So I had a little fella sitting beside me with his bayonet, and my mum and dad and my sister called over to see me. And they were met at the gate and said, you can't go and see him. Why not? He's under close arrest. Well, my dad nearly tore Heidelberg Hospital to pieces. So they decided they'd let him in. But guess, when I woke up, who was in the bed beside me? Bill Young. Didn't know he was in Melbourne. So my mum and dad would say they were going to see Bill Young to come and see me. Anyhow, I finished that. I got, on the weekend I got sick. I got another attack. sister in the hospital was very nice to me, put me back to bed, blah, blah, blah. Doctor came in off his weekend leave on the Monday morning, and I was in bed. And he said, what's this man doing in bed? Oh, excuse me, sir, but he's had another attack of malaria at temperature 102 and blah, 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 so I had to put him back to bed. He said he can get out of bed. So I was naughty. So I had to get out of bed, stand to attention. He said, he's finished his treatment, he can go out. So I finished up in the guardhouse at Heidelberg Hospital, and that night that night I finished up in the old Melbourne jail, and got up in the morning there. It was pretty cold up there, and I had the shivers. A couple of fellas in the cell with me, they'd been permanent AWLs. They even put their blankets on me to keep me warm. I got up in the morning, and we had to go and do an inspection, a health inspection, and a short arm inspection. And the doctor said to me, blah, blah, blah. I said, oh, excuse me, sir. I said, I've still got malaria on me. So for being insubordinate, they sent me out, and I did, I don't know how many rounds around the compound with me pack on me back. Anyhow, I finished up, I had to front the colonel, and I was to charge me. And they called him February, because all he could say was 28 days. And I thought, oh, well, this is it, I'm going to Bendigo for 28 days. Anyhow, cut a long story short again, once I get into I get paraded before the colonel. What's your story? Why'd you go AWL? I come home to see me mummy, I couldn't get leave. And he said, he didn't believe me, of course. The liaison officer was a man called Captain Vance, who was the 39th Battalion. Captain Vance got up and he said, excuse me, sir, I know this soldier personally. I vouch for what he says, blah, blah, blah. He's been a good soldier. But, all right. Well, I got 28 days, or I thought, but I got fined 28 days pay. Now, that night, I got sent out to Caulfield, to the staging camp out to the old race course, And there was Captain Vickers. He was an old soldier from the First World War too. At the front, Captain Vickers, as we came through. Oh, he said, just out of boob, son. Yes, sir. You're soldiering on? I said, no, sir. He said, what do you mean? I said, when I get out of this place, I said, you'll never see me again. I said, I've had the army. I said, you got bad. He said, you better sit over there. So anyhow, when I finished up, he interviewed all the others. I'm still there on my own. Right, I come into my office. He said, you got it bad, haven't you? I said, oh, yeah. I said, he said, what's your story? So I told him. And he said, you know what I reckon? I said, no, sir. He said, I think you've done a bloody good job. He said, if I got you a bit of leave, he said, would you give me a word you come back? And I said, that's what the story's been all about. He said, well, hang on, I'll see what I can do for you. He came back and said, help me. I walked out of the place with a 14-day leave pass. And the whole story, they were home for 5 days, over again, back to Heidelberg. When I come back to Caulfield, I went and seen him, see if I could get an extension on my leave, but he couldn't help me anymore. That was rather interesting. But I finished up back in Heidelberg. They put me on the draft. I was the first one out, and while I was waiting for the draft, I got the shivers. I thought, oh, you beauty, I'm getting malaria. They ran to the RAP, and I said to the RAP, I said, look, I'm getting malaria, I can't go. He said, oh, wait a minute. So he put the thermometer in my mouth, and he said, I can't help you. I said, well, wait a minute till I stop shivering. And sure enough, I did, and the temperature went up, 102 or 3, whatever it was. He said, oh, that's all right, you're right. Right, back to Heidelberg. So I went back to Heidelberg, and that's when I got sent up to, Ballarat in the convalescent depot. And they boarded me. They made me B-class non-tropical. You know. Yeah, I spent 6 weeks at Ballarat, and it was freezing up there. It was terrible cold place. But while I was there, it was in September, so it was in the 2nd of September, came up to my birthday, my army birthday. And the camp was closed because we'd been fighting with the Americans up there. You know, it was after the Kokoda Track thing, the place was full of Yanks. You could only go down the street without getting into a blue. So they closed the camp and they wouldn't give us any leave. I got a special permission to go home for my 21st birthday. I was the only one in the camp that got away.
Even though you weren't 21?
No, that was my army 21. I used to have 2 birthdays every year, you see. So I still do. Now, instead of putting them on, when I turned 80, my son Bruce put on a big party for me, and I said, I don't want to be 80. I said, you make an old man out of me. So ever since then, when my birthday comes up, I take one off. So,
that's a good idea.
So next week I'll be 73.
That's So how did it come about that you actually went back to New Guinea?
Well, I found out that the unit was going to go away. I didn't know they were going to New Guinea. Matter of fact, I never thought about it going back to New Guinea because I thought it was just about over up there, and I'll probably go to India or somewhere like that. That wouldn't be bad. So I fronted the doctor and asked him to upgrade me, and he said, you can't go. He said, you're B class, you know, you're non-tropical. I said, oh, well, make me A1. So he was bang like that, that's when I became A1. And I finished up going back, I was with the 19th Advanced Ordnance Depot, and we went from there to Itaby, up in Queensland, up in New Guinea, I should say. We went from Queensland, and from Itaby, of course, we went down to Wewak, and that's where I was when the war finished. And we were there. I was there till January 1946. So I was a low pointer and couldn't get out. I only had about 134 points or something like that. And
how did you celebrate when you heard news that the war had ended?
I celebrated by working all night unloading the ship.
Not a real celebration.
Well, it wasn't too bad.
How did you feel?
Well, I thought it was when I heard that they dropped the atomic bomb. I think, like a lot of other people, it gave me a very funny feeling. You know, it was a feeling of relief, but at the same time, it was a very, very strange feeling. And I thought, oh, well, at least I'll be going home. But I didn't expect to stay there for another 6 months, of course. But
so it took you another 6 months to pick things up.
I got out in January.
And was it mainly loading and unloading and packing up?
Yeah. I was in a Carter force, and they sent us back. I finished up out at Broadmeadows at one stage. I was there for 6 weeks or something, waiting to get out. Eventually I got to Royal Park for discharge, and I got to the stage where I said, "Oh, 5 days leave or whatever it was, come back and you'll have your discharge." Guess what happened? 5 days, Jack's back in the ambulance back to Heidelberg. And that's, they said, I think I'd done 13 full hospital courses. I'd been, in and out of, I'd had hookworm, well, you name it. You know. And so they decided they'd board me. So they made me D class. So I was D for discharge. And now after I finished my treatment again there, back to World Park, and I go up to the window to pick up my discharge. I thought I'll be ready. Oh no, you're on a priority discharge now. You've got to go across the road. I think it held me up for about 6 weeks. So I went out medically unfit and all over finished. So that's about.
Did your health suffer in over the years?
No, the first couple of years I was pretty bad, yeah. I finished up, I went to the doctor and I finished up, I went to the repat, and the doctor, one doctor there, he said to me, you've got malaria, son. You know, you got the wog. And I said, no, sir. I said, not that I used to deal with this bloke. And I said, no. I said, look, I said, I've had malaria that much. I said, I know when I got malaria. He said, you got it in a suppressed state. And he said, you got a spleen on you like a football. You know, so he put me on a 6 months course. I can't remember. It was one of the plasma queen. It was one of those. I forget what it was. About 6 months, and I've never had it since. It cleaned it up. Yeah, it was good.
How did the time you spent in the army affect you as a person when you came back to live a normal life?
Well, I was anxious to get on with it. I was pleased. I was pleased to get out of the army. Let's put it that way. And I decided I didn't know what I was going to do. I did work in mines before I went away. I worked in the carpet department in mines. It was quite a good job, but I fancied staying outdoors. So I put in for an application to become a carpenter, and I did a rehabilitation course. And I spent about 6 to 8 months actually out at Fairfield in the annex of a Collingwood Tech, and I got a job as a carpenter, or I was only a 40% carpenter when I started, and I was quite happy with that. I enjoyed my life as a carpenter, and I think it made me healthy and strong. We got to the stage where, like Olympic athletes, I think after we used to cut all the roofs and everything by hand in those days, and it was pretty good. And I think that's what put me back on the, not now. I'm pretty good. I'm better now than I was at 87 than I was at 17.
That's great. What do you think is important for the young generation to remember about the war?
Yeah, it's pretty hard for them because it's hard for them to even imagine. It's hard to even explain to them what happened if you haven't actually been there. I don't think. I think a lot of the young ones I noticed. I was at Mildura just lately. I went to my young niece was 21, and she asked me would I take her to the dawn service. She said she would like to go to the dawn service. And the friends that I stay with up there, her dad went a returned serviceman from my Wimple, and I had pretty close connections up at my Wimple. So I said, yeah, I'll take you. So I went out to the service, and when I got there was probably a couple hundred people there, and a lot of young people, and they all had their dad's medals up and so on. I had a look around for some returned servicemen. I was looking at their medals. I couldn't find any, and I found out of the whole group there, I was the only returned serviceman. So they asked me, would I lead the service? I led the service, and I was quite impressed to see the young people. If they weren't there, there would be nobody there. So I think they are becoming a bit, they're more educated,
For sure.
and they're keen to know what happened,
Exactly.
And I think they've got to know, because if they don't, there's going to be a different crew here in a few years' time, I'm afraid.
Well, on behalf of the 39th Battalion History Committee, I'd like to thank you very much for this really interesting interview. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed it. I'm very pleased to meet you, and I'm glad to be able to say that I was associated with the 39th Battalion, because they are a very proud unit, and I'm proud to be one of them.
Thank you, that's great.